The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, yesterday during Prime Minister's questions, did actually say something I think a lot of people were quite surprised by. He said that the government would do, all that was necessary to deal with the issue of trade going across the Irish Sea between the Northern Ireland and the rest of mainland Great Britain. But he told MPs he was prepared to trigger Article 16 of the protocol, a measure of last resort which would allow the UK to unilaterally override parts of the agreement it believed was causing societal or economic problems in the province. Well, last night, Michael Gove met with his EU counterparts and he wrote a formal letter calling for a 2-year extension of a number of grace periods granted to supermarkets, hauliers, chilled meat importers, parcel couriers and medicine suppliers operating in Northern Ireland. But, well, is all of that going to be enough? Let's talk to Sammy Wilson right now. He's Brexit spokesman and I say DUP MP as well. Good morning to you, Sammy.
Good morning.
Spoke to one of your colleagues yesterday. Look, there is no doubt to all that there was an element where there was always going to be a fudge over Northern Ireland. The DUP, to all intents and purposes, got thrown under a bus to get the rest of the Brexit deal through for the rest of for Great Britain, leaving Northern Ireland out of it. You're supposed to be in the best of both worlds. It appears that it's the worst of both worlds for many people involved in trade. What did you make of what the Prime Minister had to say less than a week after criticism of the EU invoking Article 16 and basically imposing a hard border? What did you make of what the Prime Minister had to say at Prime Minister's questions yesterday?
Well, I think that first of all, Julie, you do have to recognise that Northern Ireland has the worst of all worlds as a result of this protocol, which was designed to protect the European single market and which just simply removed us from our biggest market in the UK. And the UK single market, in effect, has been broken up as a result of this protocol. The Prime Minister has come off with fine words in the past. In fact, he came to Northern Ireland about 8 months ago and promised businessmen, don't worry about this protocol. If there's any paperwork, just tear it up, put it in the bin, and because there's going to be no border controls at all. And now we find that individuals can't order goods from Amazon, eBay, can't get plants in from King Gardeners, can't get plants from the rest of the United Kingdom. Businesses are finding that there's huge additional costs in trying to bring supplies in, if indeed they can get them into Northern Ireland. So we know that these are not teething problems any longer. These are fundamental issues. And what I want to see the Prime Minister do is now deliver on what he has said yesterday. He has the ability and the right to intervene. The question is, does he have the political will to do so?
Well, given the outcry over what happened last Friday when the EU, just for a couple of hours, and apparently it was a bit of a mistake, they've claimed since, invoked their Article 16. It's very serious business. This, to all intents and purposes, to not have any sort of customs control or any sort of border of any kind, even if it's just bureaucratic, but down the Irish Sea, would involve, it would appear, having a hard border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Now, I've got to be honest with you. I mean, I'm of the view that, well, if that's what the European Union wants to impose, then that's their choice. Countries and blocs are allowed to have hard borders, and the only reason we wouldn't be a hard border would be because of the history with the Troubles and the concerns there. But in which case, we're making policy based on being down the barrel of a gun of someone wearing a balaclava, threatening that a hard border would result in more violence, which seems to me is giving in to threats. But what would be the worst case scenario if the Prime Minister said, right, OK, we're not going to have any of these controls. There will be no controls whatsoever going between Northern Ireland and mainland Great Britain. What would that result in, and what would be your fears there?
It wouldn't result in anything because, of course, what the Prime Minister could replace that with is an agreement with the EU that we would mutually enforce each other's regulations when it came to trade between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. So, for example, most of the stuff that's coming in at present and is being checked is not going anywhere near the Irish Republic. There's no need for checks on it. And a plan was put forward about a year ago whereby both the EU and the UK would agree to mutually enforce each other's regulations where companies or individuals were seen to be in breach of that. So if, for example, a company in Northern Ireland exported something into the Republic which broke the EU regulations, there would be very severe penalties on them, and the UK authorities would make sure that they were penalised and vice versa. versa in the Irish Republic. That way, you don't need to have border checks because the inspection of goods or the inspection of regulations is done on a mutually agreed basis by both countries where breaches are identified.
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? This isn't necessary, any of this. There's perfect levels of trust. We're not talking about importing goods or exporting goods to countries where there's, where we've got no regulatory equivalence and a history of problems. Is this just EU tit for tat and people sort of play, computer says no attitude? Is this something that political will can resolve?
Well, I believe that it can. And, let me just give you some of the examples of how ludicrous this is. I've had companies in Northern Ireland who, when the goods arrived at Liverpool, they were on a pallet which the EU officials said was not acceptable because the wood wasn't treated. The pallet was coming to Northern Ireland, going no further than a supermarket in Northern Ireland or a business in Northern Ireland, yet those goods were sent back to the people who sent them because they were on a wrong wooden pallet. This is how I think petty the EU are being over many of these regulations, and I'm still convinced that, of course, this is all about punishing Britain for leaving rather than any protection of their single market. And, we have seen that when it has come to the protocol, and don't forget that both sides do have the right to unilaterally make changes in the protocol, but only where the protocol is affecting either the economy or the environment or society. Now, in the EU's case last week, it was nothing about the protocol. It was their mishandling of the purchase of a vaccine, which caused them great political embarrassment across the EU, and they used the protocol to cover their own political embarrassment, cynically casting it aside. We're saying the UK government has got every right to protect the citizens in Northern Ireland and should be using the provisions within the protocol to do so.